Welcome, listener, in the shadows. We bring stories into the light. Join me as we explore the encounters no one speaks of and the things that watch from the dark. You were never supposed to see this, but since you have, you might as well wear it. From the vaults of the shadows, a new collection of unsettling apparel and artifacts pulled straight from the stories that were never meant to surface. Soft, worn-in shirts and hoodies that feel like something you dug out of a locked trunk in an abandoned ranger station. This isn't just merch, it's evidence. A voice for the ones who vanished, Chapter 1. Thank you sincerely. I didn't think this channel would get anywhere. That's how I want to start this. No big preamble, no spooky setup. Just honesty. When I uploaded that first story, the one about the night, I heard someone whispering under my floorboards. I expected it to disappear into the void. I expected maybe a dozen views. A friend or two telling me, hey man, cool stuff, and then nothing. But you came. Somehow you found me, and you stayed. So before anything else, thank you for listening, for sharing, for commenting, for making this little haunted corner of YouTube something alive. Now, here's the part where I was going to do something special. I thought I'd pull up some of the oldest usernames from my comment section, the first ones who ever said, subbed, or love this, keep going, or came here from Reddit, and damn, this gave me chills. I figured I'd read a few of them aloud, say thanks directly. Kind of like a roll call of the channel's earliest believers. But here's where it gets strange. I can't find them. I don't mean the comments are buried or hard to search. I mean they're just gone. Entire threads I remember reading are missing. Like completely. No trace in YouTube Studio, nothing in the email notifications, not even cached screenshots. I checked old backups. Nothing. I tried the Wayback Machine. Still nothing. I even remembered a few of the usernames, clear as day, and when I typed them into the search bar, no channels by that name exist. Maybe I'm misremembering. That's the rational explanation, right? Maybe I just thought I saw those names. Maybe they deleted their accounts, and I'm romanticizing their presence now that the channel has grown a little. But there's one thing I can't shake. Last night, I sat down to record a dry run of this exact thank you video. And just to test the flow, I made up a few names off the top of my head. Or at least, I thought I did. I said, shout out to Crimson Root, L7 Pariah, and Ghost Sleep. You three were some of the first who made this feel real. As soon as I played the recording back, the audio glitched. Not the whole thing, just the part where I said their names. It dragged, slowed like a tape warping. And when I checked the waveform, the section where I said Crimson Root had gone flat. Just nothing. Even weirder, when I tried to upload the draft to my private channel for storage, I got a warning. Video contains restricted keywords. Please review. I checked the list. There were no swear words, no flagged content, nothing inappropriate. Just those three usernames. Red underlines beneath them like they were misspelled. Or forbidden. I laughed it off at first. Re-recorded the whole thing without using names. But I woke up at 3:47 AM with a weird thought in my head. They were real, and now they're not. And when I sat up, my phone, which I always leave charging across the room, was in my hand. The voice memo app was open, recording, and the last thing I heard before the silence, my own voice, whispering, say their names, say their names, say their names. Chapter 2, they were the first. I didn't sleep after that. I just laid there, staring at the phone screen, watching the audio recording sit there like it might sprout new words. I played it back again, and again, my voice saying, say their names, in a tone I didn't recognize. Not frantic, not scared, patient, flat, like a reminder. By the time dawn touched the blinds, I was already in front of my desktop, logged into every one of my backup accounts. Cross-referencing comment histories, cached analytics, even timestamps from my very first uploads. Nothing, the usernames weren't just gone. It was like they'd never been typed. But here's the thing. I remember one comment exactly. The way your voice stutters on the phrase, the thing in the beams, gave me chills. Subscribed. I remember it because I hated how I stuttered there. I nearly re-recorded the whole thing. And that comment, it made me feel like it didn't matter. That maybe imperfection could still be haunting. The commenter's name, L7 Pariah, gone, still. I searched Twitter, Reddit, YouTube, even Discord. Not a trace. Not a deleted user, not a banned account. Just absence. But I'm not crazy, I'm not, because something else showed up that morning. A letter. Real, physical paper, postmarked from a town I've never heard of. The envelope was unsealed, but folded tight, like it had been hand-creased and slipped under dozens of doors before mine. The return address just said, Echo Desk inside, a single sheet of yellowed paper, typed, not printed, with the kind of erratic spacing you get from an old typewriter. The ink smudged slightly, like someone touched the ribbon too hard. The letter read, There are names that speak back when said aloud. You said 3. That's the threshold. 1 to remember, 2 to echo, 3 to let the ground speak. Now the channel knows you remember them. Now the sync is open. Do not say a 4th. No signature, no explanation. But the back of the page was worse. It was a transcript from a video I never uploaded. Word for word, something I'd planned to record but never even outlined. A story about a vanished town where the billboards still change. I never said a word of it aloud, not even in notes. But there it was, typed out. And halfway through the story, the page cuts off. The last line typed. The narrator remembers the name, Crimson Root. That was when the lights flickered. Not all of them, just the lead strip under my desk. And when it came back on, my screensaver was gone. In its place, a still frame from my very first video, just me, in my dark apartment, sitting in the same chair. But there's something standing behind me in the frame. Tall, pale, bent in a way that makes your breath hitch before you even know why. Its head was low, almost touching mine. And the file name. They remember MP4 Chapter 3, Crimson Root. I had never heard of a town called Crimson Root. Not on any map. Not in any ghost town database. Not in the long list YouTube videos that cycle through top 10 forgotten places Google Maps blurred. Nothing. And yet, the moment I read the name, something clicked in the meat behind my eyes. A pressure, like the syllables had weight, like they'd been waiting in the walls of my mind. So I did what anyone in my position would do. I searched. At first, there was nothing, just results for gardening tips and a local punk band from Ohio. But then I added quotation marks. Exact match, deep web forums, dead domains. And that's when something surfaced, a cached thread from a forum called The Wire That Listens, archived sometime in 2012. Title, The Crimson Root Sinkhole, Where They Still Echo Back. The original post was short, clumsily formatted. Went there in '97 when the drain was still open. Forest east of Lyon County. Locals wouldn't speak the name aloud. Said the trees never unlearn the sounds they hear. Said it was cursed. But I heard them clear as day. Voices in the pond water. My dad, my sister. Names I didn't know I remembered. Don't go near it alone. It doesn't like the quiet ones. There were no replies. Just a reply counter stuck at 1, with no comment visible beneath it. I should have stopped. I know that now. But the voice in the back of my skull, the one that used to nudge me toward the perfect cadence, the creepy phrasing, the punctuation that makes a story land, it told me there was still something to find. So I searched government records, and wouldn't you know it, there was a Crimson Root. Briefly, a company logging settlement founded in 1921, marked unfit for habitation after a series of sinkhole collapses in the 1950s. There was no mention of survivors, no lawsuits, just a blurry photo of pine trunks leaning hard east and a black pond in the middle like an oil stain. Coordinates: 39.2074 degrees N, 96.5718 degrees W, smack in the middle of a no-access zone. Government-owned watershed buffer. That should have been a red flag. Instead, I printed the map. The drive out took 2 days. I didn't tell anyone. Just posted a vague, taking a break, uploading soon message to my community tab, and packed some old field gear I hadn't touched in years. It rained the whole way. When I got to Lyon County, Kansas, the air felt wrong. Not bad, not foul, just expectant. Like the trees were waiting for me to open my mouth. There were no signs for Crimson Root, no trail. Just the outline of a crude gravel service road, long overgrown, with a gate marked W62, no public access aquifer monitoring site. I climbed over. The moment my feet hit the forest floor, the rain stopped. Not because it ended, I could still hear it overhead, but the drops didn't fall through here. The canopy was so dense, so tight with pine and rot-thick leaves, it was like stepping into an interior, a room with no owner. And then I saw them, teeth, dozens of them, hung from the trees in little bundles of moss, tied with strips of rust-colored cloth. Some were human, others longer, wider. Wrong. I told myself it was animal, old trapping site. But I knew, somewhere in me I knew, this was a ward, a warning, and it wasn't meant to keep people out. It was meant to keep something else in. It took another hour to find the pond, if you could call it that. It wasn't fed by any visible stream. No ripples, just stagnant, glass-black water, so dark I couldn't see my own reflection in it. I stood at the edge and said nothing. I don't know how long I stayed there. 5 minutes, 15. I only know that the air around me started to hum, soft, low and wet, like a voice with no throat. And then the surface of the water began to vibrate. Not ripple, vibrate. Tiny concentric rings pulsed outward, even though I hadn't moved, even though there was no breeze. And in the center of the pond, something slowly began to surface. Not a creature, a voice, my voice, saying words I'd never said. She never left, she never left. You said the names and now she knows where you sleep. I ran, didn't look back, didn't breathe. I drove through the night with the headlights off, paranoid that light would somehow draw something behind me. I reached home as the sun came up. Everything was exactly as I left it, except one thing. The yellow letter was gone. In its place on my desk lay a cassette tape. No label, no casing, just the tape. And a single sticky note that read, "Play when ready to forget." Chapter 4, the tape that listens back. I didn't play it right away. The cassette sat on my desk for 2 days untouched. I'd catch myself glancing at it like it was a ticking clock, not in sound, but in weight. Like the longer it sat there, the heavier the air got. Eventually, I hid it in the drawer under my recording mic. Then in the kitchen. Then I taped it to the underside of my bathroom sink. But no matter where I put it, I could hear it. Not audibly, not with ears, but in a way that crawled along the lining of my skull, a subliminal itch, repeating 4 words. Play when ready to forget. I told myself it was a prank. I told myself I was burnt out, that the trip to Crimson Root had rewired something in me, maybe tweaked an old fault line I'd been ignoring since the divorce. I told myself I didn't believe in curses, and that if I did, I certainly wouldn't be afraid of some half-dead audio tape left like a dog's bone on my desk. I told myself all that, and then I played it anyway. I don't remember inserting it. All I know is that 1 second I was sitting at my desk, index finger hovering just above the old Sony player I kept for aesthetic, and the next, it was halfway through its first loop. Static, then breathing, then my voice. Not a recording I remembered making, not one I could find on any of my drives or upload archives. This wasn't just old, it was alien, warped at the edges, like it had been pulled out of something that didn't use time the same way we do. She stood by the tree line for 13 minutes. I counted. No movement, no bird song, just her, watching. The trees never swayed where she stepped. It was like the roots forgot to be trees around her. I asked her name. She said mine. Then, for about 5 seconds, there was silence, and then a voice that wasn't mine, not even close to mine. It was wet, not with saliva, but something thicker, syrupy, clogged with rot. I remember you. You're the one who tells stories. I stopped the tape, rewound it, played it again, same thing. But this time, after the final line, there was a new addition, faint, just behind the voice, a chorus, whispering, layered, endless. Tell me again, tell me again, tell me again, tell me again. I yanked the tape out of the player and slammed it back in the drawer, but the whispering didn't stop. It followed me into my dreams, not voices now, but moments, ones I couldn't verify ever happened. A girl sitting at the edge of my bed, face turned to the wall, whispering names I never learned. A pond behind my apartment complex, though I live in the city. A phone call from my mother that ended with, "You weren't supposed to go there. That place remembers." The next morning, 3 things were different. The mirror in my bathroom no longer showed my reflection, not shattered, not fogged, just blank. A rectangle of dull grey. like the space I occupied had been excised. Every digital file on my computer had been renamed "Tell Me Again." Audio, video, text, even system files. No metadata remained, just that phrase, that command. I had no memory of recording my last 3 episodes, but they were up, uploaded, titled, narrated in my voice. And they were all about Crimson Root, word for word. The views were higher than ever, thousands of comments, most of them praising the unbelievable realism and genuinely upsetting vibe. A few asked where I found the field audio. One just said, "I heard her too, but I didn't record it, and she's mad about that." The next day, someone left a voicemail, blocked number, no timestamp, just 7 seconds of silence. And at the end, faintly, "You're telling it wrong." I checked the tape again. It was gone. In its place, a second one, no label, just a note. "Now tell it like it happened." Chapter 5. The ones who told it wrong. I thought I was alone in this. I thought this was my tape, my voice, my haunting. But Crimson Root has always needed a narrator. And I wasn't the first. I drove out without packing, without planning. Just the new tape in my glove box, the old Sony recorder in my hoodie pocket, and a growing pressure in the bones behind my ears that told me, "You've been here before, and you didn't leave alone." The forest was colder this time, wrong kind of cold, not crisp, clammy, like the trees had been sweating. There were no birds, again, not even whined, but the branches were swaying just a little, like something big had just passed through and the woods hadn't caught up yet. I parked in the same place, the same patch off the maintenance road where the old fence had fallen down. Except now there was no fence, just earth, flattened, pressed down in an outline the exact size of a man's body. I stepped over it, walked into Crimson Root, and the forest remembered me. The trail wasn't a trail anymore, not one anyone had cleared. Instead, there was a groove in the undergrowth, shallow, serpentine, unmistakably walked. A path like something had been pacing here for years, in circles, always in circles. Every step I took down it, the trees grew taller, not vertically, outward, stretching into impossible shapes, elongated trunks, warped bark, branches twisting as if they'd tried to grab something that passed too close and hadn't let go in time. I kept the recorder on. It picked up nothing, not the crunch of my boots, not my breath, not even the growing hum I could now hear just under the edge of thought, that resonance you feel in your teeth when a subwoofer's too loud. Except it wasn't coming from any speaker. It was coming from the tape in my pocket. I stopped at a clearing I didn't remember being there. Circular, wide enough to fit 3 trucks. But the air was wrong. It smelled like static. It tasted like wet copper. And in the center, embedded into the ground, was an old mic stand. Not rusted, not aged, clean, pristine, waiting. I stepped up to it, raised the recorder, pressed play. Nothing happened, but the hum intensified. I stepped back, looked around. That's when I saw the first one. He was slumped against a tree just beyond the clearing's edge. Not freshly dead, more like paused. No rot, no insects. Just a man, maybe late 40s, parka dusted with pine needles, eyes wide open, but showing no awareness. Mouth slightly ajar. One hand holding an empty cassette recorder with a melted mic cable. I stepped closer. On the ground beside him were dozens of old, unlabeled tapes. I picked one up, popped it into my player. His voice, tired, dry, hoarse from days, maybe weeks, of talking into the void. I thought I could tell it better. I thought I could name her and that would be enough. But she doesn't want a name, she wants a narrator. She wants the story told the right way, from the inside, while it's happening. The tape listens, it edits, it feeds. If you're hearing this, stop talking. It's already writing you in. I dropped the recorder, and every tree around the clearing bent, just slightly, just once, all at once, toward me. I ran, no idea how far, no concept of time. I just remember breaking through a line of pines and finding the trail again. At the edge, something caught my eye. A second man, same slumped pose, different clothes, recorder in his lap, mouth stitched shut with pine needles, skin too dry for death, too intact for life, and carved into the dirt in front of him, finger written in frantic spirals. Tell it right or don't tell it, AT all I vomited. Then I drove home. I haven't played the new tape again, not yet, but I feel it watching me. Sometimes in dreams, sometimes just at the corner of my monitor. The trees still sway in the background of my apartment window, even when it's not windy. And today, someone left a package at my door. No address, no name, inside, 3 things, a 3rd cassette, a note, "Your episode drops Friday, don't disappoint her," and a photo of me, standing in the clearing, mouth open, eyes blank, a microphone in front of me, but I don't remember being there. Chapter 6. The memories that aren't mine. I woke up in a pine grove, not my bed, not my apartment. A real grove, the kind you smell before you see. Damp needles, wet bark, cold morning fog threading between trunks like it's searching. I was lying on my side, cheek pressed to soil, the Sony recorder still in my hand, and I wasn't alone. Across from me, not 10 feet away, sat a girl, early 20s maybe. Freckles, wide, tired eyes. She didn't speak. She didn't blink. She just held up her own tape recorder, hit play, and pointed it at me. And I heard my own voice, but I'd never said the words before. Day 14. The trees moved again last night. I left my boots outside the tent and found them hanging from a branch. Something's following me, but I don't think it walks. I've started calling her the Editress. I think she's recording over me. My memories, they aren't mine anymore. Not sure how long I've been here. Not sure I ever left. I scrambled to my feet. The grove was unfamiliar. No sign of the trail, no sound of traffic. I checked my phone. No service. 3% battery. The timestamp on my recorder said 3:32 a.m. That didn't scare me. What did was the fact the last entry logged was from 4 days ago. I stumbled in one direction, didn't matter which, and eventually emerged onto the cracked parking lot of the maintenance outpost. The ranger station was dark. My car wasn't there, but a car was, a different model, older, plates from another state. And on the hood was a folded note, soaked with dew, held down by a pinecone. Stop improvising. Tell it clean. Stick to the beats. You're not the first voice, Harold, just the next one. Harold, that's not my name, but when I read it, something split open in my memory. Suddenly, I remembered a cabin, a small one, remote. Musty books stacked ceiling high, tapes everywhere. A ritual written in 4 voices, a circle drawn in ash. I remembered becoming someone else, a British accent, longer hair, a limp, and I remembered dying, not screaming, not bleeding, but fading one line at a time, like the sentence of a story that was never finished. I drove back to the apartment, not sure how I had keys, not sure who I was anymore. Every mirror shows me, but not quite me. The mole on my jaw is gone. There's a small scar above my eyebrow I don't remember earning. And my voice, it sounds more like the tapes every day. Flat, rhythmic, like I'm reading, not speaking. Like I'm already part of something written long before I ever arrived. The package came again last night. Same box, same tape, the label this time. Harold Quint's final draft. I haven't played it, but I think I already know what it says. Because when I close my eyes, I remember his memories better than my own. I remember Renmore. I remember the antlers. I remember the thing that never had a mouth, just bark that learned to whisper. And it's whispering now, in my voice. Chapter 7. The others who spoke, I followed the static. It wasn't metaphorical, I mean literal static. A low, grating hiss that seemed to bleed from the corners of my apartment, fuzzing my phone speaker, crawling through the outlets. Like something inside the walls was broadcasting. By the 3rd day, it had a rhythm. Not quite Morse, not quite music, but there was a pattern. I tracked it down to the floor vent in my hallway, pried the grill off, shined a flashlight down. Concrete, then rusted metal, then something else. It wasn't ductwork, it was a tunnel. It took me 3 hours to find the entrance. Out back past the fence under the crawl space. Behind loose bricks and mildew-stained plywood. I had to rip it open with a crowbar. Beneath it was a narrow hatch, ringed in iron and lined in brittle parchment, covered in handwriting I didn't recognize, but somehow understood. You must speak before you are heard. You must be heard before you are taken. You must be taken before you are remade. The lock was broken. Of course it was. I went in. The tunnel sloped downward, a tight crawl at first, then wider, then standing height. Old gaslit sconces lined the walls, still burning or at least pretending to. But what chilled me wasn't the light. It was the voices, hundreds of them, whispering over each other, a layered mumble. Men, women, children, some pleading, some reciting, some just repeating the same phrase over and over. I didn't know what I was signing. It said it needed a voice. I thought it was just a story. The hallway opened into a chamber, vaulted ceiling, moss-covered floor, and shelves, floor to ceiling, dozens of them, tapes, each hand-labeled in fine ink, many cracked with age, dates spanning over 100 years. Some names I recognized, obscure folklorists, podcasters, writers who vanished from public life without explanation. Most I didn't, and in the center, a playback station, industrial reel-to-reel, still warm, plugged into a microphone and a headset, and a placard below that simply read, "Narrator, in session." I listened to 3. Each voice had the same cadence, the same cool calmness that now haunted my own tone. They told different stories, different forests, different rituals, but the endings were always the same. And then I vanished, and then I forgot my own name. And then I was written out. Some even addressed me. If you're hearing this, it means you're next. Don't try to escape. The sentence ends you when the story does. The Editress doesn't need permission, she just needs a draft. One tape was cracked. No label, just blood-smudged tape wound around loose reels. I spooled it by hand, curious. And I swear to God, the voice on that one was mine. Not just the voice, the content. A retelling of what had happened the day I received the first tape, word for word. Except it ended with my death, not metaphorical, not artistic. Explicit, a choking noise, a thud, silence. And then a voice, not mine, not human, whispering, "Needs more tension, try again." I ran. I took the stairs 3 at a time, scrambled out the hatch, kicked the bricks back into place. But it didn't matter, because when I turned around, panting, wild-eyed, I saw it, on my apartment wall. Where there had once been drywall was now a shelf, just one, with a single cassette tape on it, labeled in the same fine ink. Final draft me. Chapter 8. The Editress begins to rewrite. I tried to burn the tape. I didn't hesitate. As soon as I saw that label, Final Draft Me, I pulled it from the wall, ran to the kitchen, and lit the gas burner. It hissed to life. Flame curled upward. I held the cassette over it, my hands trembling. The tape was cold, like it had been pulled from a freezer. Ink bled under my grip. And just as the plastic began to bubble, the flame turned blue, then violet, then died out. Every light in my apartment flickered, and the air changed. It didn't go dark. It went blank, like someone had forgotten to finish rendering the room. Walls blurred into suggestion. Outlines grew soft. Texture drained from objects. Colors washed into gray, and then words began appearing, floating, scrawled midair in shifting typewriter text. The narrator hesitated. Something in him rebelled against the draft. He tried to alter the ending. He failed. No one rewrites what's already been spoken. The letters dripped like ink. When they hit the floor, they sizzled, burned holes in the hardwood. I backed away, and a voice filled the room, low, dry, not spoken aloud, but pressed into my skull like a finger into wet clay. "You don't get to edit the story. You're part of it now." The walls returned slowly, like someone redrawing the space from memory. But they weren't quite right. My bookshelf was replaced with an index, spines labeled in languages I'd never learned. My photographs now featured me, yes, but slightly off. Eyes too wide, smile too sharp, shadows too long. One of them moved when I wasn't looking. The air smelled like printer toner and mildew, and above all there was that whisper, constant, low, backspace, rewrite, replace, publish. I turned on the sink faucet. Ink flowed out. I fled the apartment that night, carrying only what I could grab in under a minute. Left the cassette, left the walls watching me. I booked a room at a roadside motel on the edge of town. Thought I'd escaped, thought I could outwalk the voice. But the moment I closed the door behind me, I saw it, another shelf, just one, already in the room, carved from dark wood, dustless, waiting. And sitting on it, impossibly, was a new tape. This one read, Chapter 9. The escape attempt. I hadn't spoken that chapter yet. I hadn't even thought it, but it was already written, and the player beside it had already pressed play. Chapter 9. The town that forgot me. I hit the road before dawn. No destination, no route, just drive. I figured if I could get far enough from the motel, from the shelf, from her, I could outrun the script, break the story, be my own narrator again. For the first few hours, it felt possible. The sun crept over the horizon. The sky didn't glitch. No voices echoed in my head. The road unfurled like a ribbon of freedom. I didn't stop, not for gas, not for food. Not even when I passed that deer on the shoulder, the one with too many joints in its legs and eyes like old film negatives. I just drove. I crossed 3 county lines before my car sputtered to a stop. The tank was empty. I pulled into a station near a place called Halbert's Hollow. No memory of ever hearing that name, even though the map said I'd grown up 2 towns over. I paid in cash, tried to joke with the clerk. He just stared. "Need a name for the receipt," he said deadpan. "Nick Farron," I told him. "I think I've been here before." He blinked. "That's not a name." "Yes, it is." "No," he said flatly, eyes scanning something behind me. "That's not a real name." I checked my license. The name had blurred, not erased, just rewritten in cursive I didn't recognize. I checked my phone, no missed calls, no texts. Then I opened my gallery. Every photo of me was gone. In its place, static, or worse, frames of the cassette tape. Sometimes half buried in sand, sometimes tucked under a pillow, once in the mouth of a wax figure with my eyes. I dropped the phone. Back in the car, the radio clicked on by itself. No music, just a voice, mine, speaking in perfect rhythm. "You left the room, but not the page. You ran, but we rewrote the road. You are the footnote now." I drove faster. I didn't recognize the trees anymore. They sloped backward. The bark peeled upward like torn pages. Some had letters growing from their knots. Others whispered back sentences I'd never said. The world around me grew, low resolution. Like reality was only rendering the parts I looked at. Turn my head too fast, and a building might not be there yet. A person might still be assembling. I passed a group of hikers. They were walking backward. Every so often one would vanish, then reappear in the same spot like a tape skipping. I blinked, rubbed my eyes, and then finally a sign. "Leaving Halbert's Hollow, entering Story Gap." Story Gap. I didn't slow down. But the moment I passed the sign, a gust of wind hit me hard enough to crack my windshield. And then I saw it, the shelf, on the side of the road, standing in the gravel, one shelf, one tape. Chapter 10, the rewriter. The car wouldn't move. The engine died. The air went thin. The world once again forgot color. Only the voice remained, coiled in my throat like a second tongue. "Your story is not ending. It's just being adapted." Chapter 10. The rewriter, the door to the shelf was already open. I don't remember opening it. There was no room inside, not in any architectural sense. Just space, stretched, muffled, and yellowed like the pages of a diary left too long in the sun. And in the center, seated at a desk made of microphone cords and lacquered cassette shells, was her, the editress. Not a woman, not exactly. She wore the skin of a human idea, long, elegant limbs made from carbon paper and magnetic tape. Her face was a facsimile, outlines like editorial marks, lips pursed into a redacted line, and eyes full of graphite dust that churned like a cyclone of unwritten thoughts. She looked up as I stepped inside, and in her voice I heard every story I'd never dared to tell. "Nicholas Farron, you ran so far just to find the next paragraph." I opened my mouth to speak. I think I said, "What are you?" But what came out was a soft, reel-to-reel hiss. The editress didn't answer. She edited. She slid open a drawer, pulling out an old ledger. Each page was a name I knew, fellow narrators, podcasters, YouTubers, even the ones who'd mysteriously quit, even the ones who'd vanished mid-series. Next to each was a short note, a rewrite. Vera Holt, reduced to ambient voiceover. Now part of the wind, Marcus Kildare became the man under the static, nose only looping. You, promoted, voice retained, self-redacted. She handed me a final cassette, unlabeled, but I knew what it was, my last episode. "You have a following now," she said. "A growing audience. Do you know what they gave you?" I shook my head. "Consent," she said. "Consent to narrate them into place." I staggered back. This was never mine. I didn't write this. but you read it. That is the ritual. And then the tape in my hand split, right down the center, unraveled like a scream, magnetic ink curling into the air like incense. I looked down and realized my fingers were gone, replaced with spindles, reels. My mouth itched. When I touched it, my lips peeled away like the backing of a sticker. She pointed to the chair, and I sat. The editress slid a fresh cassette into a slot near my throat. It clicked. The room fell silent. And then, from somewhere deep in my new spine, a hum, a tune, a narration. I heard myself begin to speak, and it wasn't my story anymore. It was yours. Epilogue. No one remembers when the new episodes started appearing. Not even the narrator. They say if you listen closely, headphones only, in a dark room, you can hear the moment the voice changes. Like a breath that shouldn't be there. But it's subtle, comforting, warm even. Like someone sitting beside you, just out of frame, waiting. You made it back for now. But the things in the dark never truly leave, do they? They watch, they wait, and perhaps they remember you now too. If you want to hear more, if you dare to listen again, step back into the shadows. Like the video. Subscribe, but know this, some doors once opened do not close so easily.